Disrupted.
America that I fought.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. And yes, I am wearing my jazz singer-like hat here because we got some interesting stories to tell you today. And there is a new element in the post-Fox Tucker Carlson segment, or saga, I should say. And I know I've talked extensively about Tucker Carlson, mostly because even though I disagree with certain things that he's mentioned, he is a fascinating person. He's a fascinating person for a lot of different reasons. Not only on the fact that he was the nation's #1 news anchor and he hosted the show, Tucker Carlson Tonight, which was viewed by enormous amounts of people. Both Republicans, Democrats, independents, and non-voters have all tuned into this. He was the #1 cable news show on television, and then he got fired by Fox News. He is also one of the few individuals that dipped his toe into telling us the truth. Whether it came from, the truth about the Ukraine war, whether it was about the truth about the war of Syria, whether it was going on about Julian Assange. He was the only one of the very few people in mainstream networks that even bothered to mention Julian Assange or even bothered to mention how we're funding a bunch of neo-Nazis in Ukraine, and was willing to actually dive into journalism and research these topics and actually speak highly about these facts and go into detail about these things. You don't really see this a lot in mainstream media, and that's why Tucker Carlson is such a fascinating person that I cover a lot about this, because it's an interesting saga after the, Fox Network and Fox News Channel and Fox Nation, cut cords with him. What's next in this saga is pretty interesting. So here, there's a new element to this, because video got leaked of Tucker Carlson talking to one of his producers at Fox. And I want to show it to you here because it is a fascinating in-depth of what corporate media is like and how controlling it is when it comes to the standards of journalism. Because Tucker Carlson is about to do an interview for his Fox Nation show, Tucker Carlson Today. And he's talking to his producers, and his producers, while he's on the phone, before they even do the interview, it exposes a lot about the media industry. And it is fascinating, it is wild, and it's also kind of hilarious at the same time. So here's the segment here, and you're just listen to how crazy this is.
I don't want to be a slave to Fox Nation, which I don't think that many people watch anyway. We're gonna because I'm like a representative of the American media now. Speaking to an exile in Romania and welcoming him back into the Brotherhood of Journalists.
Yeah, it would help us out if you wore a sweater though, because we asked him not to wear a suit. Like, he was panicking about it and said, "You don't have to. Tucker's gonna be looking casual. That's just how our show looks." Is that okay?
I mean, this is airing on the nighttime show, and I want it to look official. I don't want it to be like bro talk. And I, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but the majority of it, like if we go like 45 minutes, it's going to be for Fox Nation.
But nobody's going to watch it on Fox Nation. Nobody watches Fox Nation because the site sucks. So I'd really like to just dump the whole thing on YouTube. But anyway, that's just my view. I'm just frustrated with it's hard to use that site. I don't know why they're not fixing it. It's driving me insane. And they're like making like Lifetime movies, but they don't work on the infrastructure of the site. Like, what? It's crazy, and it drives me crazy because it's like we're doing all this extra work and no one can find it. It's unbelievable, actually. I don't know who runs that site.
We're going to play a sizable chunk on the show tomorrow night. That's the plan. And then what it's going to do is drive a lot of people to watch this on Fox Nation. It's going to be a great help to what we're doing over there on TV today.
I know, but we're doing our part. We're like working like animals to produce all this content, and the people in charge of it, whoever that guy's, whatever his name is, like they're ignoring the fact that the site doesn't work. And I think it's like a betrayal of our efforts. That's how I feel. So of course I resent it.
So that was an interesting glimpse in the world of corporate media and just how controlling, demanding it is, because the whole conversation, the whole complaint of why the producer was calling Tucker Carlson was what he was wearing. Like, ignore the fact that you're talking to an exile from Romania, introducing him back into the brotherhood of journalism and the topic at hand. We're concerned about how you're going to appear on camera. And the kicker of all this is that he wore the sweater. So after all this, he ended up wearing the sweater because he works for Fox Nation. And it's amazing that Tucker Carlson just admitted right there on the phone call, this site sucks. The site sucks. Like, no one can get to it. No one can access it. And I hear a lot of complaints that, you know, people that are trying to get on Fox Nation, like, it is complicated. And you wonder why, like CNN Plus failed for obvious reasons. And it's one of the things that baffle me is that the whole idea, like the streaming service wars, like how there's Netflix, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, Peacock, there's Tubi, there's all these different versions of varieties of all these streaming platforms. And there, you know, cable networks are trying to get on board with the streaming service. And the thing that just drives me crazy and it shakes my head is that cable news networks, people are barely watching them to begin with. They're not even watching the original channel. So why would you extend that into a streaming platform? You know, that's the thing that I just don't understand. Like, at least Netflix, like, people are watching Netflix not to watch news. They're watching it as an escape from news. They're not watching it because they're interested in top stories. No, they want to get away from the news. They want to get away from cable. That's why they subscribe to Netflix or Disney Plus or Apple Plus or Paramount Plus. That's why they go to streaming services. They're not there to watch more cable news because nobody's watching the original content to begin with, but now you're going to do a streaming service so you can have other shows that nobody's going to be watching. And Tucker Carlson just said it out in the open, like, nobody's going to be watching this. And there was even a conversation afterwards where Tucker Carlson mentioned about putting it on YouTube. Put it as a YouTube clip. Because more people are going to tune into a YouTube clip if it has Tucker Carlson's name on it than trying to get on Fox Nation or subscribe to this for an interview that you're arguing over the appearance of it. So it is fascinating. And it just goes to show you that it is not about the content. It is not about the journalism. It's about the appearance of journalism. Like that's cable news in a nutshell. It's the appearance. It's the image of trying to make it look like it's a professional news set and how professional it is. But really, it is just a joke. It is really just a joke. And I really couldn't care less about the appearance. I couldn't care less about it. I'd rather get fact-based journalism from someone in a t-shirt and jeans than getting lied to, paying the, $200 a month for cable or $11.95 for whatever streaming service and have a suit and tie lie to me. Like, that's the thing. That's the thing. And Tucker Carlson just said that openly right to his producers, right to his bosses. Like, no one's going to be watching this. And you're concerned about a sweater. You're concerned about a sweater and not the actual interview at hand, which could actually be relevant to people. But that's the thing. Producers don't care. They don't care. The execs at Fox could not care less. It's about viewership. It's about ratings. And that's it. So whatever's going to get people glued to the TV screen, they don't care about facts. They don't care about the information. They don't care about the topics. They don't care about the interviews. They just want people to tune in, shut up, put their eyes forward onto the screen, and just keep watching. That's the world of cable news, ladies and gentlemen. And Tucker Carlson in this recording was able to reveal it all just with one phone call. This is why it's so interesting. Which is leading to stuff like this. So now that Tucker Carlson's out of Fox News, there is concern over what's next for him. So obviously Tucker Carlson has a bit of name recognition, so he doesn't really have to tie himself to any corporate conglomerate. You know, he's been through CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, Fox Nation. He's been around, so the fact that he's a popular person in the cable news universe, like he can go on and do his own thing. But here's where this gets interesting. So Patrick Bet-David, who runs this company called Valuetainment, and he has his own podcast show. I've seen clips of it. I don't watch him extensively, but I've seen clips of it. He seems like a very nice person. Patrick Bet-David. He had on Jimmy Dore recently. He had on other individuals. Like, he seems like a very open character and a very good podcaster. I'm really jealous of his set. Let's be honest. I'm really, really, really jealous of the set that he has. Like, it puts me to shame. It puts me to shame. But I'm also doing this on a shoestring budget in the corner of my basement. So, and I think he's been in finances and life insurance or whatever for years. So, like, he's built up a lump sum to afford a podcast studio like that. But it is phenomenal. And he just made an offer to Tucker Carlson for $100 million. Patrick Bet-David just offered Tucker Carlson a $100 million 5-year contract and the present position at Valuetainment. Damn. That is a bold move. That is a bold move. But again, I don't know. Tucker Carlson can easily do his own thing. Like, he has enough name recognition. He has enough following. He has enough supporters that he could probably easily just back out of this and ignore this and just do his own thing and move on from it. But this is interesting that Patrick Bet-David offered $100 million for a 5-year contract to join his company and become president of said company. So here's the contract here, the proposal they brought up to him. And it says, Dear Tucker, I'll get right to the point. We want you to partner with us in what we feel is noble and necessary effort to define the future of media. Here's our offer: $100 million over 5 years, an equity stake in Valuetainment, president of Valuetainment, and a board seat to project your strategic vision and voice, your own podcasts and other daily, weekly shows, documentaries and movies covering topics you care about. What else? We're all ears. So that's what makes Patrick Bet-David more watchable than corporate media. And that's what makes this more interesting, is that you have the freedom to engage. You have the freedom to voice your opinions and voice your own stories and your own scoops that you're able to collect. And that's one of the things why so many people, especially in my generation, are getting away from traditional media and looking towards podcasts. I'd rather, listen to a 3-hour Joe Rogan interview, especially if it's someone interesting and enlightful. I would love to hear a 3-hour conversation, if it's actually an in-depth conversation with Joe Rogan, than to watch, 30 minutes of Rachel Maddow and her straitjacket talk about Russia and Putin and McCarthy smear and this. Because Joe Rogan doesn't have producers. He doesn't have a corporate agenda. He's not being told by his sponsors exactly what to say. He does his thing and people sponsor towards him. And that's the difference between a independent podcasts like Patrick Bet David here that he's able to engage with his audience. He doesn't have to, incorporate all these, these companies and all these different advertisers and play to their game and play to their agenda. He's not trying to sell you a story. He's just being himself. So this is definitely interesting. It also says, our convictions about freedom, liberty, and truth run deep, and we believe we are an absolute fit for you and America. While we may not be the biggest media company, we are a new media leader driving into the future to make truth, fair debate, and commentary more accessible, consumable, and protected. We are 100% serious about our offer. Respectfully, Patrick Bet David. So that's apparently that's the big thing right now. That's the big projection. And no word yet if Tucker Carlson's going to take that deal. Like I said, he doesn't have to, because I think he has a good enough name recognition that he could just do his own thing. He can start his own podcast. He can do whatever he needs to do. But the fact that you're going to have that this offer came to the table is pretty remarkable. It's pretty remarkable. And here's what Tucker Carlson said after he left Fox News. And this was the first thing that he mentioned after people were aware that he got fired. Take a listen to this.
Good evening, it's Tucker Carlson. One of the first things you realize when you step outside the noise for a few days is how many genuinely nice people there are in this country. Kind and decent people, people who really care about what's true, and a bunch of hilarious people also, a lot of those. It's got to be the majority of the population, even now. So that's heartening. The other thing you notice when you take a little time off is how unbelievably stupid most of the debates you see on television are. They're completely irrelevant. They mean nothing. In 5 years, we won't even remember that we had them. Trust me, as someone who's participated. And yet at the same...
Again, that goes into the whole, why I would listen to Joe Rogan. I would listen to a 3-hour podcast than even, most daytime television. And, no disrespect to, Kelly Clarkson or, who are the people now in daytime television? I don't even know. Kelly Ripa or the V, I wouldn't recommend The View, period. But anyway, there's a different tone when it comes from daytime corporate television that is completely pure marketing and just a run the mill and is just going with the flow, or even late night television. It's the same setup. It's the same draw. It's the same exact marketing setup. It's there's no originality. There's no creativity. There's no in-depth conversation compared to Joe Rogan or compared to Patrick Bet David on his podcast, or Jimmy Dore. When he has conversations with people, it's an actual conversation. It's not just a manufactured mumbo jumbo to promote something. It's actually an in-depth communication with another human being. And that's what makes it more special than anything you see on television.
Same time, and this is the amazing thing, the undeniably big topics, the ones that will define our future, get virtually no discussion at all. War, civil liberties, emerging science, demographic change, corporate power, natural resources. When was the last time you heard a legitimate debate about any of those issues? It's been a long time. Debates like that are not permitted in American media. Both political parties and their donors have reached consensus on what benefits them, and they actively collude to shut down any conversation about it. Suddenly, the United States looks very much like a one-party state. That's a depressing realization, but it's not permanent. Our current orthodoxies won't last. They're brain dead. Nobody actually believes them. Hardly anyone's life is improved by them. This moment is too inherently ridiculous to continue, and so it won't. The people in charge know this. That's why they're hysterical and aggressive. They're afraid. They've given up persuasion. They're resorting to force. But it won't work. When honest people say what's true, calmly and without embarrassment, they become powerful. At the same time, the liars who've been trying to silence them shrink and they become weaker. That's the iron law of the universe. True things prevail. Where can you still find Americans saying true things? There aren't many places left, but there are some, and that's enough. As long as you can hear the words, there is hope. See you soon.
So that, again, goes to show you what corporate consolidation can do to conversation. Because that's Tucker Carlson after being fired from Fox. So he's able to just be honest and be open and say that, yes, we live in corrupted times. We are occupied by the duopoly. We are occupied by this, corporate force, this oppression by the oligarchy that could not care less about the conversation, decorum, and debates and discussions that society has to evolve from. We don't have that anymore, which is why society is crumbling, which is why we're yelling at each other and screaming and having these, stupid, ridiculous fights all the time, rather than building from conversation, building from discussion. And that is amazing to hear a news anchor from the mainstream media world to just come out and be honest about it. You think Rachel Maddow would ever do something like this? No. You think Anderson Cooper would do something like this? No. And that's why Tucker Carlson was the number one viewed person on cable network, on cable news networks. But you're never going to hear this ever. And that's why he is a predominant figure. He has a huge following. And whether he takes that, Valuetainment deal or not, he is definitely going to get more praise for being out of Fox, and definitely can champion more out of not being consolidated by a corporation than what Fox is dealing with right now, because they pretty much pulled a Bud Light. Because now that Tucker Carlson's gone, their stocks, their entire the Fox network, Fox News Network is completely tanking. Completely tanking. Because their number one predominant voice, Tucker Carlson. And again, I disagree with some stuff that he says. I disagree with him on immigration. I disagree with stuff they say, some things about Canada that he says about certain things. But he fights for freedom of speech. He fights for civil liberties. He talks about the truth of war. He's, mentioned about Julian Assange. He even interviewed members of Julian Assange's family. Nowhere on any cable network or anywhere in publication will you see that. And Tucker Carlson was that person. And nowhere will you ever see a corporate figure, a person of the mainstream media, admit on a podcast that he screwed up. That's what Tucker Carlson did. All the years that he's promoted the Iraq War when he was on MSNBC or CNN, he had remorse because he had a vision, he had truth, he had a different, he had a perspective moment, and he finally thought to himself, why did I do this? What good came from me promoting the Iraq War? What good came from me pushing Afghanistan? I was shilling for corporate consolidation. I was not being a journalist. I was not being aware. I was just going with the flow. And that's why there is more value and more, really just a more presence when it comes to independent media, when it comes to outsider voices, than anyone in cable news or anyone in corporate media. So wherever Tucker Carlson does, people are going to go with him, and I hope he makes a name for himself and continues on that journey, and keep doing what you're doing. That's all I can say.